Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on the Inside NASCAR. The time is here. The 1997 NASCAR Winston Cup point season kicks off with the Daytona 500 a little over 2 hours from right now here at the Daytona International Speedway. Mike Skinner, driver of the Richard Childress number 31 Lowe's Home Improvement Chevrolet, surprised everyone by sitting on the pole a week ago yesterday. Can he keep that Chevrolet out front today? Well, time will tell. Stephanie Boyd is in our studios in Charlotte, North Carolina. She'll preview today's race and also look at yesterday's action in the Busch Series. Good morning, Stephanie.
Good morning, Ned, and good morning, everyone. Well, there have been 24 previous winners of the Daytona 500, and this afternoon, plenty of drivers would like to add their name to that list. Coming up next, we'll preview Stock Car Racing's premier event. Plus, here's a look at what else is ahead in this 1 hour of Inside NASCAR.
As the Busch Grand National teams get set to kick off 97 with the Gargoyles 300, both Diamond Ridge Motorsports entries will take the green flag unsponsored. Our Glenn Jarrett will find out the plans for Gary Bechtel's two-car team in 97. For the second consecutive year, the 15 Ford of Bud Moore is running at Daytona without major backing. Larry Pearson's taken over the driving duties for what could turn out to be a one-race deal. We'll talk to Pearson and find out his thoughts on being behind the wheel of a Winston Cup car again. If you ask any of the crew chiefs in the garage area, they'll tell you they receive resumes from wannabe crew guys constantly. But where do they come from? Well, we'll show you how Clemson University has started a motorsports engineering program with hopes of producing the next generation of top wrenches. All this and more coming up in the next 60 minutes of Inside NASCAR.
Today's show is brought to you by Miller Lite. When you've got the great taste of an ice-cold Miller Lite, life is good.
After nearly 2 weeks at Daytona International Speedway, the Winston Cup Tour is finally ready to crank things up for its annual running of the Daytona 500. As usual, there's been lots of drama surrounding the first official race of the 1997 season, and our Tyler Potter has been at Daytona to bring us all the latest.
Well, Stephanie, the 39th Daytona 500 is about to get underway with the Chevys of Mike Skinner and Steve Grissom holding down the front row. Now, Daytona is the only place where qualifying is an actual race, the twin 125s. And just like last year's 500, it was the Dale and Dale show, with Jarrett winning the first race and Earnhardt the second. 17 laps into the first twin, the first caution occurs when Delma Cowart hits Jeff Bodine. At the time, Cowart was being lapped while Bodine had been running third. Bobby Hamilton had a day to forget. Halfway through Thursday's race, the 43 car was forced to drop out due to engine failure. With 10 laps left, Ernie Irvan passes teammate Dale Jarrett to move into first, but 5 laps later, Jarrett returns the favor with a little help from Mike Skinner. Jarrett captures his first twin 125 victory.
Ernie's car started pushing a little bit, and I could see that, and he got off the white line a little bit, and it really pushed up, and he had to get out of the gas. And I saw that was my chance, and I didn't want to jeopardize us finishing first and second, or at least one of us winning the race, but I knew that was my opportunity.
Mike Skinner, Ernie Irvan, Jimmy Spencer, and Sterling Marlin rounded out your top 5. For Marlin, it was a step in the right direction after starting 22nd.
You know, the difference is we just had to figure the qualifying deal out, the shocks and springs and what have you. We came and tested, and it was decent, and they hang the weights on them, and it was our fault. We just, hindsight's 20/20, and got behind, and we just put the race springs in it, race shocks, like we always do, and was good. Was real tight in 3 and 4, and we get the chassis worked out, we'll be really good.
In the second twin, an accident involving 5 drivers sent Ricky Craven, Lake Speed, and Loy Allen all to the garage. Later, Dale Earnhardt and Jeff Gordon led a 7-car breakaway, passing John Andretti for 1 and 2. Pole sitter Steve Grissom was not a factor, heading to the garage on lap 18 with handling problems. Kyle Petty was on the outside looking in until Andretti brushed the wall with just 5 laps left. Petty finished 15th, locking up the 30th spot in today's 500. Dale Earnhardt held off Jeff Gordon for his 8th straight twin 125s victory and his 10th overall.
It breaks the ice and gets Larry and me tuned up even more. We're a winning team, and 8 in a row here in the qualifying races. Maybe that means 8 championships. What do you think?
Jeff Gordon and Bill Elliott finished second and third, respectively. Ken Schrader wound up fourth after starting 20th, while Michael Waltrip finished a surprising fifth.
We've been carrying this burden with us all week of how we were going to get in this race, and fortunately, you know, today we were able to shine a little bit, and now we're ready to go racing.
Some of the bigger names not making the 500 include Chad Little, David Green, Mike Wallace, Larry Pearson, and Rick Mast.
I've never missed one of these races before, you know what I mean? So that's a shock to begin with, you know, but the way it goes, I guess the 2-car down here last year, you know, he was way up in points the year before, and that enabled him to get in the race, you know, and we just weren't up enough in points to have a provisional, and, you know, we didn't do the things on the racetrack we needed to do, so we just go get them at Rockingham.
Mast won't be in the 500, but his car will. Loy Allen will drive the Remington Arms 4 with the number 19 on the side after crashing his primary car in Thursday's race.
In Winston Cup, you kind of know everybody, so, you know, I've worked with a couple of these guys in the past, even, you know, the 2 or 3 years that I've been here. So they're working really good with me, and Rick's hanging around and trying to teach me some things and help me during practice. So, you know, I can learn a lot from this, and, you know, can kind of help both teams out.
It was a bad week all around for Joe Nemechek. In practice Wednesday, he wrecked his top car when he was bumped from behind by Ward Burton. Thursday, he failed to qualify for the Daytona 500, so owner Felix Sabates stepped in, reaching an agreement with Phil Barkdahl for Nemechek to drive the 73 car. Nemechek gets the driver points, Barkdahl gets the owner points. On Thursday, NASCAR drivers and owners gathered at a morning press conference to show their support for Rick Hendrick in the fight against leukemia.
We could generate millions of dollars in donation, and that's not what's important. You know, no matter what your religious beliefs are or whatever, the greatest thing you could do as a human being is give the gift of life to somebody else.
If you'd like to become a bone marrow donor, simply call 1-800-MARROW2. You know, Rick Hendrick's given us the last 2 Winston Cup champions. Maybe it's our turn now to give something back to Rick. Stephanie, back to you.
Thanks, Tyler. So again, it's rookie Mike Skinner on the pole for the Daytona 500, with Steve Grissom alongside in his first race since midway through last year. Twin 125 winners Dale Jarrett and Dale Earnhardt share row 2, followed by Ernie Irvin and Jeff Gordon on the 3rd row. On row 4, it's Jimmy Spencer, along with Bill Elliott, who's been having a great week so far at Daytona. And rounding out the top 10 starters are 2-time 500 winner Sterling Marlin and the New Skull Bandit, Kenny Schrader. While the Winston Cup Series runs its first points race of the season today, yesterday the Busch Grand National Series also kicked off its 1997 season at Daytona. And for only the 2nd time in the history of this race, a Busch Grand National regular found his way to victory lane. Even without a sponsor, and despite the fact that it was his first time at Daytona, pole sitter Elliott Sadler pulled out front and paced the field for the first 30 laps of the Gargoyles 300. After that, though, the number 29 started to fade and later got caught up in one of 4 caution flags on the afternoon, this one starting when Jimmy Spencer in the 20 got into Kevin LePage. The first of the caution flags came out with only 10 laps on the board when Joe Bessie tagged the wall, setting off a chain reaction that also collected Shane Hall, Dale Jarrett, and Doug Reed. Then the next yellow flew when former Dash star David Hutto lost it in turn 2, and another Dash graduate, Lyndon Amick, hit him head-on. Meanwhile, up front, 7 drivers took turns at the lead, including Sadler, his also unsponsored teammate Jeff Green, and Dick Trickle. But it was defending Busch Series champ Randy LaJoie who led nearly half of the 120-lap event in his Fina Chevy. In the final laps, with a long stretch of green, the only question was, did he have enough fuel to make it to the end? His team wasn't so sure, but LaJoie managed to stretch it all the way for his first ever win at Daytona.
You know, I figured the car out front was the strongest, and I just had to get there. And I got a bunch of help from guys to get me to the front, and I'm just glad to be here in victory lane. It's pretty neat.
Second went to Todd Bodine, who had moved all the way up from a 24th place starting spot to run with the leaders all day.
We're pretty happy with it. It's the first time I finished a Busch Grand National race here. Second time I've ever finished here, but I've never started points higher than 28th, and to be able to start second
It's a pretty good feeling.
I thought maybe we had a little something for them at the end, but with the gas situation and us being on old tires, everybody else being on fresher tires, we had to just take what we were dealt, and finish the race. And, come out of here in one piece. We got a good start on the point deal and go on to Rockingham, see what we can do with that Lysol Pontiac.
Well, that's all the time we have for this segment of Inside NASCAR. But when we come back, Ned will rejoin you from Daytona International Speedway. Later in our show, we'll have the starting lineup for the Daytona 500. We'll be right back.
It's not often that you see a car in the NASCAR Busch Series or Winston Cup that doesn't have a sponsor on the side of it. It's a necessary evil in the sport, but you don't have to have it. Gary Bechtel has 2 teams running in the NASCAR Busch Grand National Series. Those cars will be driven by Jeff Green and by Elliott Sadler, and neither of those cars have sponsorship. Glenn Jarrett has the story.
Is it disappointing? Does it tarnish things just a little bit for you to see your cars running around out there unsponsored?
No, Glenn, it really doesn't. I mean, we think about it a lot, and I think you talked earlier with both the drivers, and I hope we put it in their mind not to think about it, but they're responsible people, so they do. And right now, Diamond Ridge is the bank, and the bank has limits too. But we developed a master plan 4 or 5 years ago, Glenn, and part of it was that we wanted to be in the racing business, and we wanted to partner with somebody that was in the marketing business. And we did that with the Cartoon Network on the Cup side, had that relationship going with World Championship Wrestling, and that just didn't go where they wanted to go, or Diamond Ridge. Unfortunately, we had a 3-year dialogue with them, or 3-year commitment, if you will, renewable each year, and we both elected to go our different ways.
Gary, how far do you want to go with this thing? Is this, having the Winston Cup team and 2 Busch Grand National teams? You said that you had a 4 or 5 year plan. Can you be a little more specific about that in terms of how long Diamond Ridge Motorsports is going to be a presence in NASCAR?
Diamond Ridge, Gary Bechtel will get out of racing if we can't perform. And I can't tell you how excited I am today with the Cup team. It's hard work at the Cup level. It's a lot harder than it looks, let me tell you about that. And it's also hard at the Busch, but I think that the personal impact it had to me when Jeff Green said that he'd like to come to work at Diamond Ridge, and then Elliott coming on, and then seeing them work together and grow, and this is really exciting.
Elliott, one of the premises of this story is the fact that you and your teammate Jeff Green don't have sponsorship on the car. Does that make you and the team put forth a little bit of extra special effort? You've already won the pole, but come race day, are you going to try that much harder to attract some bucks, some sponsorship dollars?
Well, yeah, it's been in the back of our minds the whole year, the whole winter, trying to prepare for this race. And we wore poor Richard Carter, our vice president's phone out, and Gary's phone every week, trying to find out, hey, we got anything yet? What's going on? And we're going to keep it in the back of our minds the whole week and come Saturday. But I think due to a good run, that some sponsors will try to get on either car, and I hope that's what happens.
Question that jumps out at me, Jeff, about this. You agreed to come over, drive for a team. A little bit of risk taking on your behalf, again, coming to a team in an unsponsored car. Were there ever any second thoughts or misgivings about that, or did you feel strongly enough about what this organization would be able to do for you?
I didn't have any second thoughts, Glenn. Dale and Tracy was awful good to me for the last 2 years, and we had some good runs, but there was just things missing. We didn't win races, and that's what we're supposed to do. And I think where I'm at right now with Gary's, what he's done for me, gave me the opportunity to come over. We've got a great relationship between me and him, and hopefully we can get a great relationship with a sponsor. I don't think he's cut any corners on my team or Elliott's, and that's what it's all about. We've got great equipment, and you can't win races if you don't have great equipment. So I feel like that we can be a contender for these points and win races too.
People look and say, well, they don't have sponsorship, but they sat on the pole. They got the other car and qualified 6th for the first race that he had a 2-car team in. The guy doesn't need any money. Do you ever think about that?
I think that, the perception is that maybe I was in it because of the fun of racing, and it's such a contagious activity every Sunday. But we're in the business of racing now. We're not just in the racing business. Big distinction there. We've got some good people and running the team from a business point of view. And again, I think the road's across here shortly where the financial return meets the commitment in. All I got to do is keep the drivers doing what they're doing today. I don't have to do anything. All I have to do is let them do what they're capable of doing, and they'll take care of stuff.
Bottom line is, Gary, to sum it up, if you don't get a financial commitment sponsorship for either of the cars, that you will continue to fund the program for both guys to run every race for the balance of this year.
Not making that commitment, I have contingency plans, though. And they're both under contract for the rest of their lives, as far as I'm concerned, with Diamond Ridge. So, no, I don't have anything up my sleeve. We're doing a lot of other things, point blank, that don't directly affect these operations. We'll cut those back if we need to. But that's part of the master plan. We have a Legends program, for instance, and, a nice place to live with a coach. They make car going faster. All these kind of things go quickly. But I'm really not worried about it. It's frustrating, but I'm not worried about it. I just I think about it.
Hi, my name is Brian DeHart. I'm a NASCAR Winston Cup inspector. In the past, at tracks at Daytona and Talladega, teams have ran a real soft rear spring rate that helped get the spoiler out of the air. In the '97 season, NASCAR has implemented a minimum rear spring rate that each car must meet. Basically what we do, we have a go, no-go gauge that we use. The team is allowed 3/8 of travel. And we just set this gauge. It rides on the quarter panel, same place that we measure the quarter panels at. We set zero the gauge, then we add the weight, which is 75 pounds per each side, or 150 pounds total weight, and the car cannot sag more than 3/8 of an inch. If the car does sag more than 3/8 of an inch, they must go around and change springs. The reason NASCAR raised the quarter panels is the teams were building special cars for Daytona and Talladega. By NASCAR raising the quarter panels, the teams are running the same car at all tracks, which is a decrease the cost of the car owner.
Victory Lane here at the Daytona International Speedway, a very coveted place. Who will be the driver that'll pull in here after the 1997 Daytona 500? Who will go on to win the 1997 NASCAR Winston Cup Championship? Certainly there's been a lot of speculation on both of those situations, so we polled some of the media who covers the sport to find out what their thoughts are.
Well, you know, for the 500, you got the regular cast of characters that are running well, with the exception of Rusty. Rusty's new to the fold this time, running extremely well. But Dale Jarrett's running well, Sterling Marlin's running well, John Andretti is new to the fold, he's running well. But I tell you what, I think that the odds are finally going to be in Earnhardt's favor. You can't run as well as he's been running in Daytona for so many years and not collect a win in the 500. He's confident. He's got a lot of confidence in Larry McReynolds. The chemistry seems to be working. So I've got a feeling that this is the year that Dale's going to do it.
Oh, man. You guys make it hard. This is the first time out. 500. It won't be Earnhardt. The field won't be Earnhardt. I wish he would, but he won't. Title. Woo! Earnhardt can win the title.
Well, I'll tell you, the Fords are looking awful good, and I think you'd be crazy to bet against the Robert Yates motor here. So I guess for the 500, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to pick Dale Jarrett to repeat. And for the title, even though he didn't win a race last year, Mark Martin looked awfully strong toward the end of the year, and he's consistent. Everybody was shocked that he didn't win any races last year, so if he manages to win a few races and can maintain that consistency, I think he'd be tough to beat.
You know, every time I ever guess anybody, I'm always wrong. So if I was guessing right now, I think it may be Earnhardt's day, and I think he may pull it off. I think, you know, with Larry McReynolds, he won't ever have a better chance than he has this year.
For Daytona 500, I'm going to have to go with somebody like a Terry Labonte. Everybody always talks about Dale Earnhardt having never won it. Terry's never won it either.
Well, the 97 title I got to think about, and this is a short fight, so we'll have to beg off on that one. But for the 500, I think we're going to have a surprise winner. I think a newcomer will win. I think if he can keep his car straight, I like Robbie Gordon.
Oh, for the 500, I'm going to go with probably the guy that no one would think would have a chance, and that's Rusty Wallace. He's had so much bad luck down here for so long, but this year I've seen a determination and kind of a team spirit going on there. I think that Rusty's going to win the 500. As far as the championship, I don't see how you can't go with Dale Earnhardt, teaming up with Larry McReynolds to help out in that effort, and of course all the resources they have to work with. And with Larry McReynolds' experience, I think Earnhardt's going to get number 8.
Well, my predictions come with a couple of ifs. I think if Rusty Wallace stays on his wheels, he can win the 500. I think it'll definitely be a Ford. And if he doesn't, I think one of Robert Yates' cars will wind up in victory lane again. Now, last year, I did pick Terry Labonte in January to win the championship. This is a little tougher. If Dale Earnhardt stays healthy, he'll win the title. I think the champion will be a Chevrolet driver. And if Earnhardt doesn't do it and Terry Labonte doesn't repeat, I think you'll see a first-time champion. We'll see who it is.
Well, it will be interesting to see who will cover this choice piece of real estate here on Sunday afternoon. When we come back, we'll talk with Larry Pearson. Certainly he'd like to be one of those drivers, but he doesn't figure he has a good shot at being here. He just wants to be in the race and be running for the 1997 season. Stay tuned.
I was looking toward the Busch side of things for next year, and kept reading the paper about Bud, needing a driver. He didn't have a sponsor or anything, so I just got up enough nerve, and I called him, and things just went from there.
Some would say the best part of coming is leaving, and that's the way it's been for some people, and us in particular in the past. But when you're down here and you're running good, man, you wish you were here a month. It's like winning the Indy 500 or the Daytona 500. It's, it's nice when you run good.
It's a nice place, and, there's a lot of good fans down here. So, the main thing is you get rid of cabin fever, I guess.
The best thing about Daytona is you get out of the house, you get the year started. You get all the jitters out. You sit around all winter, you test, and you daydream about how your year is going to go and all that, and it goes on every day, and you do all the appearances with the sponsors, but once you get to Daytona, you know the year's starting. You get to racing again.
Glenn Jarrett did the story earlier about a couple of NASCAR Busch Grand National cars that didn't have sponsors on the side of their cars. Well, there's a couple in the NASCAR Winston Cup garage area that don't have sponsors too. One of those is the car number 15, the Bud Moore Engineering Ford of Spartanburg, South Carolina. They've hired Larry Pearson to drive this car this year. Larry is the former NASCAR Busch Grand National champion twice, and he's hoping to get a break and get into Winston Cup racing, and we talked to him about this new opportunity. Larry, this situation with Bud Moore, is this a second chance in your career, or third chance, or how is it?
Well, it's the first good chance I've had in a long, long time, Ned, to be honest with you. The guys are they're dedicated, and he's got the equipment. Right now we don't have a sponsor, as you know, but I think that'll come next week, hopefully. We're real close to something, and maybe things will work out for us.
How did it come about that you got hooked up to Bud Moore? Of course, you live in the same town.
Yeah, we're only a few miles apart, believe it or not, and actually, I just called him. To be honest with you, I was looking toward the Busch side of things for next year, and kept reading the paper about Bud, needing a driver. He didn't have a sponsor or anything, so I just got up enough nerve, and I called him, and things just went from there.
Had you ever talked to Bud Moore about a ride before?
No, never have. Never have talked to Bud Moore about a ride. He's always seemed to get hooked up with veteran Winston Cup drivers, and to be honest with you, I really didn't think that he would want someone with my lack of experience on the Winston Cup circuit. But it surprised me when I called him, and he said that they were interested, and that he would get back to me. And finally he called me back and said, let's go to Daytona, we'll do some testing.
You have spent most of your career in the NASCAR Busch Series. Has that been by design?
We tried Winston Cup racing in 1989, and our sponsor pulled out on us after 1 year. And I really had no choice but to go back to the Busch Series. And I'm not downgrading that series at all. It's a very competitive series. And, I will miss it very much if I don't run that series this year. But, Winston Cup is where everybody wants to be in Winston Cup racing, and I'm no exception. I know I can drive a race car if I get the right team under me, and hopefully I'll get that chance with Bud Moore.
How tough has it been on you, knowing that you could win? You won 2 championships in the Busch Series, won a lot of races there, so you had to have the confidence in yourself, but yet you were passed over a number of times for Winston Cup.
Well, I don't know the reasoning why I was passed over. Age might have something to do with it, but heck, there's a lot of guys out there a lot older than I am, but I really don't have an answer for that. I mean, I wish I knew, but I've got to make the best of this situation here. This may be my last chance in Winston Cup racing. And as far as, like I said, the guys, the equipment, the car owner, it's all there. So basically, I guess it's up to me now.
And the sponsor is basically what's needed to fill out the gap?
Yeah, if we can get a sponsor, then we're committed to run the full year. But we need enough money. Bud, although he's had sponsors in the past, he really hasn't gotten the money that he really needs to be up with the other teams, the other teams that run well. Although his cars do run well and they're very consistent, they don't fall out of races that much. He still doesn't have the funds behind him that he really needs to put forth a really great effort.
Does your dad still play a role in your career?
Every weekend, Ned. Every weekend our race, my phone rings Sunday morning if it's a Saturday race, and it's my dad. He's not as bad as he used to be, though. I mean, he's actually he's got some nice things to say about things I've done, but he's not. He'll let me know when I do something wrong.
Did David, your dad, tell you when you were interested in driving how tough it might be along the way?
He let me know, yeah, in so many words how tough it would be, especially a person that's married and has a family. I mean, you're gone so much, and you really don't see them grow up the way a father should. But heck, I've been in racing all my life as well as Dale has with you, and I know nothing else. I mean, when I got married, my wife knew that I was a race driver, and she knew I was going to race, and she was willing to take that sacrifice, and it's worked out well for us.
And my next question is probably a dumb one. If you had it to do all over again, you'd still do it?
I would definitely still do it. I would probably get started a little earlier. My dad, he opened up a lot of doors for me, but when I was ready to start, he was still racing, and I guess it was just hard for him to step aside and just put all of his eggs in one basket as far as helping me and my brothers get started. He was still racing, so I got a little late start, but I wouldn't change a thing.
Let's hope things work out for Larry Pearson and Bud Moore. I think they'd make a good combination in the NASCAR Winston Cup Series. I know there are a lot of you folks out there that would like an opportunity to drive a NASCAR Winston Cup race car. Well, you can do it, and here's how with the Richard Petty driving experience.
The sensation of the speed the first time that anybody does this can take your breath.
The King, Richard Petty, on the Richard Petty driving experience.
First time out, you better let off right past the start-finish line and get that thing aimed to get in the corner, because most people have never experienced the transition of going from a flat surface into a bank.
It's motorsports competition with you at the wheel. The Richard Petty driving experience. For more information, call 1-800-BE-PETTY.
It's enough to take your breath away.
Question today is from Lorena Alfrey from North Ridgeville, Ohio. When cars go behind the wall for major repairs, are they permitted to refuel there?
Hi, I'm Richard Boston, truck driver and gas man for the Bell South Chevrolet, driven by Joe Nemechek. Lorena, that's a very good question. Yes, you can fuel the car when it's behind pit wall. Of course, you have to have firemen and fire extinguishers in case there's a fire if the car is torn up real bad. Thanks for writing in.
Send us your question on a postcard, and if it's used, you'll receive this fabulous shirt and cap from Chase Authentics, the choice of champions, the authentic trackside apparel of NASCAR.
There's lots more to come on this edition of Inside NASCAR, including a story on a major university that's offering an engineering class on racing. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
Ladies and gentlemen, start your VCRs. Speedway Spoofs presents the hilarious Bees Roll 500. Join world-famous comedian Killer Bees as he takes an in-depth look at the funniest race in stock car history. You'll get inside information on viewing the race close up, where to find cool souvenirs, tips on grandstand etiquette, and much, much more. So race to your phone and call 1-800-380-7404 or send $14.95 plus $4.95 shipping and handling to the address on the screen.
Our sport has come a long way. Not too many years ago, you didn't hear about engineers in NASCAR Winston Cup racing, but now it is a major part of it. Just about every team has an engineer on it. And now one of the major universities is offering a class in engineering. Clemson University of Clemson, South Carolina. Brett McMillan has the story.
This is not your father's stock car racing. Long gone are the days of guys working nights and weekends out of a greasy garage in their backyard. This sport has gone high-tech and is tapping into some of the best engineering minds in the country. Nowhere is this more evident than at Clemson University in South Carolina. Clemson is a school long known for its nationally ranked football teams. Well, now it could be producing the next wave of NASCAR engineers. After the death of Alan Kulwicki, Hooters CEO Bob Brooks set up a stock car-related program at the school. It focuses on engineering, communications, and marketing. Right now, one of the Winston Cup teams taking advantage of this program is the number 77 Jasper team.
I was looking for somebody that we could do some technological experiments with, and knowing Clemson's engineering department and their reputation, I thought that I could really enhance our program by using their resources and their people, and it's really gone past my expectations. They've been great.
Both sides see this whole program as a win-win. The students are learning the intricacies of a stock car, while the team's getting some fresh input.
It complements my way of thinking, too, because I haven't been around any race teams but our own race team here, and so how other teams do it, I don't have this mindset that this is the way it's done or this is the way it needs to be done. So I have a fresh attitude, and I like the same thing from them because they've got the same approach, and they learn a lot off me, and I'm learning a whole lot off of them.
I probably recommended some very basic ideas, which Mark was pretty open to that, and right now they're trying some changes on this. You got to see if it works or not.
Now, Viduri didn't start out studying race cars. He was more interested in large trucks and semis, but was directed towards the stock car program by his advisor at Clemson, Dr. Harry Law. Brad Eichenlaub, on the other hand, wanted to go this way from the beginning. He's been a huge race fan.
It was the idea of working with Winston Cup cars, learn more about them, and I guess trying to engineer them better to go around the track a lot faster.
In fact, Eichenlaub has been playing a little guessing game from his couch for years.
When I'm at home watching them, I try to figure out what the changes are that they're making, how it's making it go faster. Trying to learn basically from watching it, and yeah, I guess I think about what could they do different to make it go faster. But a lot of it's I'm trying to learn too,
During testing, the Jasper crew hooked the car up to a computer. But thanks to the Clemson students, the crew believes they were looking at some things other teams haven't been. For Viduri, this experience out of the classroom is invaluable.
In order to get the car faster, first you need to analyze what's going on in order to make corrections to that. So till now what I've been doing is that gathering data, looking at the data, and then confirming, okay, this car is doing this at this particular corner. So it should do something else there which will make the car better, feel better.
We're looking at some of the steering geometry on the race car, and one of the engineers brought up, said, what if this was happening? And I looked, and it was, and we definitely made improvement on our lapse time on the track, so that's a perfect instance of them bringing up ideas and looking at it from a different viewpoint of somebody that's been in it for a while.
Some teams may hesitate to get involved with a program like Clemson's, fearing that when the internships are over, these guys might take some secrets with them. Or, to prevent something like that, the teams might keep the students away from certain areas. Now, from an engineer's standpoint, that significantly lessens the learning experience. Well, Jasper's Mark Hara took all that into account when he got involved.
Well, we've got a confidentiality agreement, so I'm pretty much open book with them. I think it's the only way it can work is if you can lay out everything and that they know the whole scenario and the whole setup of what's happening with the race car and the goals that we're going toward and not hide anything from them, because you can't put a shield on them or it's not going to work. And you could say that's a chance, but it's not, because I trust these guys, and I think it will help us, quite a bit more than it would hurt us if they did find something and leaked it to somebody else.
All that ties into Hara's belief that NASCAR's rules force everyone in the sport to work a little bit harder than those in other forms of racing.
We've got to be more creative than, say, Indy cars, where you have pretty much open rules. You can do anything you want. We've got to be creative with our technology in order to stay within the rules. So I think that puts us even more advanced than some of the other sports that can run computers on their car all the time.
I think that having your eyes open to a reality like that should be a part of an internship. And by that standard alone, this has been an invaluable experience for these Clemson students.
To look, they look very simple. But once you start diagnosing the problems, when you're fighting for every hundredth of a second, it's altogether a different ballgame there.
All the changes they've made, trying to make it go faster, how many variables there really are, it's really mind-boggling, you know.
You found out a stock car isn't really a stock car, did you?
It sure isn't.
The Great American Race, the Super Bowl of stock car racing. Incredible, unbelievable, simply wow. A couple of nicknames and a few ways to describe the Daytona 500. The elements are simple. 42 drivers racing inches apart at over 200 miles per hour, 200 laps around the 2.5-mile superspeedway. There are many words to describe the Daytona 500, but boring isn't one of them. It's impossible to pick the single most exciting Daytona 500, so let's take a look at a few that are very memorable. No one will ever forget the Pearson-Petty finish in 1976 when the Silver Fox and the King tangled out of turn 4 on the last lap. Pearson, driving for the Wood brothers, crossed the stripe at a blinding speed of around 20 miles per hour. 2 years later, and it's Petty and Pearson again crashing out of turn 4. This time, a young Darrell Waltrip is also involved. Richard Petty's bad luck in turn 4 at Daytona continued 10 years later after contact with Phil Barkdahl. Everyone held their breath, but after a few moments, King emerged with little more than a few bruises. In that same race in 1988, it was a two-generation sweep for the Allisons. Bobby the winner, Davey was runner-up. In 1992, driving for Robert Yates, Davey made it a spot better, and he took his very own Daytona 500 victory. The Great American Race, the Super Bowl of stock car racing. It's incredible, unbelievable, and simply wow. A couple of nicknames and a few ways to describe the Daytona 500.
Darrell Waltrip is celebrating his 25th anniversary in NASCAR Winston Cup racing this year and is celebrating it with a chrome car. How did he do in the Daytona 500? Well, we'll show you right here on Inside NASCAR next week. And now let's take a look at what all we do have for you.
Who will win the Super Bowl of stock car auto racing? Nobody knows, but we will sit down with the winner Sunday night after the 500 and have it for you on next week's hour-long show. The off-season leading up to the race at Daytona may have been one of the most active in years with all the changes, the drivers, crew chiefs, cars, teams, colors, whatever you can think of. We'll show you the new lineup for 97. Everybody's heard of the Waltrip, Wallace, and Green Racing brothers, but what about the others? You can find more than a dozen siblings in the garage area each week, and our own racing brother, Glenn Jarrett, will introduce you to the ones that might not come to mind right away. All this next week on Inside NASCAR.
It's a busy time for all the drivers here during speed weeks at the Daytona International Speedway, but a few of them find some time to do some things for charity. And this time they were doing something that they enjoyed, and that's the subject of this week's Inside NASCAR Profile.
After qualifying earlier in the day, Winston Cup drivers took to a different track Tuesday night in the first annual Race for Their Lives. With over 1,000 people watching, 14 drivers hit the go-karts, raising over $6,000 for the St. Jude Children's Hospital.
The money goes to research. St. Jude focuses on research to save children around the world and right here in Florida. We focus on childhood cancer, leukemias, pediatric AIDS, sickle cell anemia, things of that nature.
Jeff Bodine was fortunate enough to ride with Scotty Walker, who at 24 has already overcome a malignant brain tumor.
It was great. I had a great experience.
And that's why we're here, to give everybody a great experience, and of course for the hospital and everything. And a lot of folks came out, a lot of race fans came out. We're really glad they did, and maybe we'll do this again next time.
But the night was not without its share of laughs, like Mike Wallace having some fun with the Daytona Police Department.
There is no concealed weapons. Hand over the arm ring. Concealed weapons. The guns.
Guns, weapons and guns. No drive-by shootings.
As for the wrecks, well, there were plenty to go around. Just listen to Randy LaJoy.
What do you call that? That was called a hell of a wreck.
Anytime you do something for the children's hospital, you have to do it. You got to take time off because, I mean, that's our future. I mean, I got 2 little guys myself, whether it be mine or anybody else's kids that have a terrible disease or something wrong with them. You know, we just got to try to give our time and support through a good effort.
Will this be the year that Dale Earnhardt wins his first Daytona 500? How about his 8th NASCAR Winston Cup championship? Well, only time will tell. Our time's up for today. We hope you enjoyed the show. You join us again here on TNN for more on Inside NASCAR.
Today's show has been brought to you by Miller Lite. When you've got the great taste of an ice-cold Miller Lite, life is good. Drivers, race teams, and race fans. The 1997 Simpson Race Products catalog is now available, featuring all the new products and services for 97, plus Simpson's complete line of racer and fan gear. To get your copy, call 1-800-71-RACIN and join Team Simpson today. The official conversion van of Inside NASCAR is Gladiator by Glovell, America's #1 luxury van. Glovell, the way we put it together sets us apart. Communications for Inside NASCAR provided by Racing Radios, Forest Park, Georgia, the official communications of NASCAR and the Winston Cup Series.